Hello, this is Mark from I Am Organic Gardening. Welcome to my 22-acre farm and backyard garden that's all organic. Now I want to show you today, take a little tour of my backyard garden and also what's growing in the field. So come along, let's jump on the tractor and take a little tour. So just a little quick update on my tractor. I bought it last year, so it's a year old already. Time went by so quickly. It's an L3901. And it only has about 105 hours on it total for the whole year. And I mostly use it for harvesting. I'll take the bucket off the front and put forks on it. And when we bring in sunflowers to the field, we'll bring in, like, say, anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 sunflowers at a time. It's very important. I can't do that with a pickup truck or any other vehicle, especially on wet, rainy days. And on the back, we just have a nice mower. That's called a Woods. It's called a brush bowl, and basically it's 6 feet wide and about 6 feet deep, and that helps maintain the farm by cutting down all the grass and in between the rows of the sunflowers when we get out in the field. So behind me here is my backyard garden. It's about 75 feet wide and 100 feet deep. It's grown organically. The only thing I use in there is worm castings, and that's pretty much for anything that's not direct seeded. All the direct seeded crops are usually grown inside a cover crop area or something with leaf mold in it. I've tried different experiments over the years, and things are working out very well, and I've made other videos on it. And today I'm going to show you what's left from the storm that we had, let's say, almost a week and a half ago that hit us pretty hard, straight line winds, and things are doing pretty well. They actually came back very well. It's amazing how strong nature is. So let's go check it out. Thanks.
Lucy girl. Lucy, you want to go take a trip, huh? You want to go out in the garden? Come on.
So the first thing we have here is our tomatoes on our trellis. This is a cattle panel, and some are turning colors in the background already, which is nice. A lot of branches were broken from the storm, but they're holding up, and actually I don't see any problems with them so far, so we're doing very good. So let's see if we can find some ripe tomatoes or something that's changing color already. Now here you can see how that stem is broken, but it's still nice and green and holding on. I don't want to move it at all, and if you just leave it alone, you'll get all this lush foliage which is growing in front of here, and it will actually still produce tomatoes and everything will be fine. So when you get damage like this, just leave it alone. Don't move it at all, and your tomato plant will just do excellent in the future. So here's an heirloom variety tomato here. It's German Johnson. And again, branches are broken here and here, but you can see it's starting to turn a nice color, a little bit of bug damage on top, but still all good. When you get some kind of bug damage on top or a little bit of splitting, as long as it doesn't crack completely open, again, that tomato will form and produce a nice, tasty, delicious tomato for you. So don't panic if there's a little bit of bruising or anything else on the top. Everything else here is looking good. Again, those branches are surviving. It's amazing how much this is split open, and it's still green, and it still has a nice stem up on top. And here's another fine example of these nice green tomatoes here. They're doing well. There's a couple down here on the stem below also too. Now, branch completely almost snapped off in half, but is actually growing and healing itself, and those tomatoes will be nice and ripe in probably another, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks. And this variety is called Big Beef, and it's doing quite well for me here in New Jersey in Zone 6B. So here I have my nice yellow squash field. It really came back and is nice and healthy again. There's a couple plants that died off because of vine borers, and that will be a separate video. I'll show you them. Now these squash or yellow squash are doing quite well, like I mentioned, and I see a couple flowers at the end of the row, so let's take a closer look. Here's a prime example of what I love to see, especially after the storm with all the damage. Now with this, you can see here that we have the female flowers producing fruit here and here, and then we have the male flower with no fruit on it, and that's going to be right there when the flowers open up, that it can pollinate and do very well. Now I moved over to my permaculture tomatoes. You can see here what this big green leaf is, or this plant here, is comfrey. I have 4 comfrey plants, and I also have 4 tomato plants growing behind them. I don't stake them. I actually let the tomato plant lean on top of the comfrey plant, and this way it's not laying on the ground. There's no problem. I don't remove suckers. It's all good. I just let it grow, and it's doing quite well. we'll go around the other side and we can see better, and there's tomatoes forming. And this is just another prime example where you can grow tomato plants next to something else. You're not going to have a problem it's stealing nutrients with each other. This is a good example. Actually, there's one tomato right here I can see, which is doing very nicely or something. Now, again, this is for people that want to just plant and forget. It's beautiful, it works, and this is just proof that it's all because nature works with each other. Now here's the other side, or the back side of the comfrey that's growing along with the tomato plants. And you can see that they're all nice and healthy, lots of tomatoes on there, and they're doing just fine. Again, plants work together well with other plants. Anything is a companion plant as long as it's in the same group using the same mycorrhizal fungi. It's just amazing how this all is working together, and I've done nothing except started that plant inside the house, brought it out here, acclimated it, and then planted it in the ground. And it's sharing nutrients with the comfrey and coming back and forth. I don't have to worry about even chopping or dropping it. If the plant gets too big, you can do that, but if you don't, it still works just as well. So what we have here behind me is my watermelon patch. It's doing quite well. Now, the weather has changed dramatically in the last couple days, and I hope it doesn't affect the watermelon patch too much. It's actually getting down to about 60 degrees at night, and that kind of hinders it for a while. Watermelons love the heat, and they love lots of water. So we'll see how it works out, but you can see the nice green foliage behind me is extremely well, forming those great vines that you can see growing. All those great vines are doing very nicely and covering the soil very well, and we'll see what happens in the future with all this beautiful foliage, and hopefully we get lots of watermelon. I have a prime example of a great watermelon patch. Now it's doing very well. The vines are healthy still. We've gotten plenty of water this year, which is also a tribute to a healthy plant, and you can see that it's taking over. I'm going to say this, it's about 15 feet wide and maybe about 45 feet long. And there's some more behind me also too. But it's doing extremely well this year. There are some small watermelons on there. This weather's just been crazy this year, but lots of flowers. But the problem this year is that we've had such a dramatic change of weather, meaning it's so warm to so cold. Now it's getting down to 60 degrees at night. And the bees should be coming out and help pollinating everything. This is the variety is called Crimson Sweet. It actually does have seeds in it and is doing very well too. Now, it's all good, but if it gets too hot, the bees don't like to work, and if it gets too cold, they seem to not go deep into the patch. They go to the outside flowers. And next we have one of my personal favorites, sweet corn. It got knocked down, but it actually came back up again. So very happy to see that. Those winds were about over 100 miles an hour. And that sweet corn, thank goodness, it wasn't too tall. It's doing well. And also, thank God that the tassels did not come out early to knock all the pollen off, because it wouldn't pollinate the corn. There's several news reports you'll see in Iowa that they had the straight line winds also, and it took down a patch that was almost 700 miles long. You can look it up on YouTube. It just devastated a very good crop of field corn. It wasn't sweet corn, or field corn, where it just snapped everything off right there on the bottom or halfway up the plant, and they've lost their crop for the year. And it's very sad, and I send my prayers to them. Again, we as farmers and gardeners, we can only do so much, but the biggest factor is that we have a problem with is that weather. You can do everything right in the soil, seeds, nurturing, trellising, and else too. But when that wind comes along, or too much heat, or lack of water, you are at the mercy of nature. And let me say that it is frustrating, but as farmers, you go through it all the time, and you know what can happen, and you can just do is just sit back and pray. You can see that the wind is helping that pollen being released from the tassels and will fall down onto those silks. And here you can see those silks that are open, all that pollen, which is right there, is falling on them. And actually each one of these, let's say silks, you can just see that the pollen's on there. Each one of those silks has to have pollen hit it to form every single kernel in that cob. So if you ever open up sweet corn and there's a kernel missing or is lack or a line is missing, is because this silk here did not receive pollen to it on each individual strand. Each individual strand goes to each individual kernel in that cob. And here's something that I'm so happy about. That strong trellis I talked about in 8 tips for growing cucumbers, that trellis held up very nicely. The tendrils on the cucumbers held onto it for nice and strong. And that cucumber, let's say, trellis is doing extremely well. And I see lots and lots of cucumbers on there. That'll be a separate video. I'll be out here in the next day or two harvesting and also starting to dehydrate them and also making cucumber juice and a couple of different things that I do with the cucumbers that we get so much all of a sudden, and how I preserve them and use them for other type of items in the kitchen garden. I have my sweet potato patch, which is growing very nicely. I'm going to say the sweet potato foliage is up about 2 feet. Just amazing this year. Again, all this weather and heat and good soil development has really paid off, and I believe sweet potatoes is definitely going to be a future field planting that we can harvest from and make some extra money on the farm. But just beautiful. I'm glad they're doing so well. A couple of weeds in there, but they never hurt anything by growing in the sweet potato patch. So let's take a ride out to the field and check out a couple of acres of sunflowers I got growing. That's my main income, and hopefully they're doing very well. On the way out to the sunflower field, I wanted to stop and show you my small pumpkin patch here. It's only 3 seeds, and I've learned over time that if I grow them in leaf mold and good rich soil that has been growing with a cover crop and putting the leaf mold on afterwards, that I get this beautiful, amazing pumpkin patch. Again, that's only 3 seeds, and it's about, let's say, 20 feet wide and about 25 feet deep. You can see how healthy it is and is doing well, especially in this season. For the last 3 years, we've had nothing but cold, wet springs, very hot summers, lack of water, and a lot of storms. But now I'm seeing what I can grow if it stays this way in my environment in zone 6B, that I can start changing up on crops that I'm growing. And this is one of the crops I hope to do well in the future, especially pumpkins that you can eat for food, not so much ornamental pumpkins. Let me move the foliage out of the way. You can see that they're forming very nicely. We have one here, and nice green solid vines that are doing extremely well. And I saw a couple of bees out here pollinating, and the foliage on here is just amazing. So this is my first sunflower field. It's about 2 acres large, and we don't plant, or I don't plant them in rows. What we do with these sunflowers, we sell the seeds to people. We cut after it flowers and it matures, the sunflower seeds are edible, and we sell them for anywhere from 50 cents to $1 depending on size, and for organic sunflower seeds. And people love to use them for snacks, and also love to actually pick them out of the flower head that we sell the whole product to them, and they can just feel that they receive something right from good soil, nutrition wise, and enjoy having it watching their favorite TV show or anything they wish to do. It is just amazing how many people love to have that product, and it's been doing well for me for over the years. And I continue to do it, and then we'll go in the next field over here, and that's where we have individual rows that I use for cut sunflowers that people, again, too, we sell them wholesale wise for about 50 cents, and we sell the direct to the people for about $1. and the sunflower heads last about, and that's for cut sunflowers, and that lasts about for, let's say, 7 to 9 days long after we cut them. And right now, all these sunflowers are about, let's say, anywhere from 3 to 4 feet tall. They're just starting to form the flower itself. And here's the flower bud that's forming inside the leaves here. Nice and beautiful. And that's about, let's say, that will be flowering in, let's say, another 20 days. And another 30 days after that, we'll have the sunflowers to pick for seed. It's getting kind of close to a frost state, but we've always come close every year, and it does extremely well. Actually, the seeds are more, let's say, plump or more stronger in size than if we that we harvest during the summertime. So they're doing an excellent job right now, and they're going to be harvested before a frost date. And here's a very partial view of my field of cut sunflowers. You can see all the rows that we have going across here that I planted. I planted these all by using a earthway seeder. It's the one that you push, and it's a great workout. I've been in great shape planting sunflowers over the years. This row is about 400 feet long, and this is about, if I zoom around or something like that, we have about 3 acres here of sunflowers, and doing extremely well. And what's nice about this, I actually went down, I'm going to move the camera over here for just a second. So to maintain the rows, like I showed you earlier in the video that I have the mower on the back, I just go down the rows and I cut the weeds down. In some places the weeds take over a little bit too much, but that's okay because it's just organic matter going back into the soil. And we just keep the rows clean, or I keep the rows clean, for the reason that's a lot easier to cut, and you just get a lot less wet sneakers or boots in the morning when you go to cut the sunflowers. This field will be ready in about another, let's say, about another month. This variety is a very slow growing variety, but it makes a beautiful sunflower. And we have over here some more varieties growing. It's extremely bright and sunny today, and hopefully you can see all the rows planted here. We have them coming on at different times and see what's going on, because you don't want all the sunflowers to come in at one time so you can cut them. You want to kind of stagger the planting a little bit. I plant sunflower seeds about every 2 weeks, and this way it gives me a good open window to cut everything and sell them and bundle them. And speaking of sunflowers, it doesn't look like a sunflower, but it really is. These are Sunchokes, Jerusalem artichokes. And you can see that it was a nice hedge until we got that straight line winds coming in here. There's so many beautiful beneficial insects that come to these, anything from butterflies to predatory wasps, everything. It's a great crop. And what you do is the top is just foliage, and it usually gets about anywhere from 7 to 8 feet tall, but below in the ground is almost looks like a potato. That's the part of the sunchoke that you eat. You actually dig in the ground and you'll harvest it, and I'll make a separate video on that too later on. That these are just amazing plants to have. It's great survival food. You just plant it once and just enjoy it. It is just outright amazing, and is so healthy for you. And again, it has unique tastes, but they do very well all the time, and I've never had a problem with disease or insects with these whatsoever. I want to thank you so very much for watching today's video. All the work that you see, I do myself. I do have my younger son living with me, but he's autistic and he's nonverbal, and he can help a little bit, but not as much as you think is possible. But again, everything is good. It's just take one day at a time, breathe, be happy, smile, and best of all, gardening is such an outlet for everybody in this world. I hope everybody enjoys it, and if you feel that you're failing at gardening, you're not. As long as you put a plant in the ground, you're adding organic material to that soil. It might not be the first year or the second year, but don't give up on it. It's something that will keep you balanced in your life more than you can imagine. So give it a thumbs up for yourself, and also enjoy life, and I'll see you again with another fantastic video in the future. Maybe fantastic. I'll see you again shortly. Thanks.